Welcome in. Here it is, GameTime Decisions on the SportsGrid Network. A very happy Wednesday to you now. Here, April the 17th, as we've got a getaway day in Major League Baseball. A lot of afternoon games. We've got some completed already. We have just a handful of games coming up over the next few hours, but a bunch still trying to be decided, including the New York Yankees right now, top of the ninth inning, trying to avoid losing every game to the Toronto Blue Jays here. Knotted up at 4 apiece right now. We'll see Yankees have 2 outs here in the top of the ninth, so we'll see if they can push across the go-ahead run here. The Oakland Athletics, Las Vegas Athletics, whoever you want to call them, 6-3 right now. They're on top of the Cardinals, also in the top of the ninth. And you've got teams like the Cubs taking on the Diamondbacks in Arizona on top 5-2. And let us not forget that Seattle has finally figured out how to win some games lately, and they're going to try to win another one here in the bottom of the seventh, 4-1 over the Reds here. Game 2 of the doubleheader between the White Sox and the Royals is underway. Bottom of the third, no score there. Waka on the mound for the Royals. Brady Singer pitched the earlier game, and the Royals, shockers, won again 4-2 over the fledgling Chicago White Sox. The Marlins, stop me if you've heard this before, lost again earlier today, 3-1 to the San Francisco Giants. The Orioles doubled up the Twins 4-2. And the Mets, those amazing Mets, handle business against the Pirates today, 9-1. Who'd have thunk it here? Also, Brewers escaped the Padres 1-0 in a pitcher's battle there with former Yankee Michael King on the mound. And the Rangers get it done over the Tigers earlier today. Shocker is that the Tigers actually scored 4 runs. Usually they're good for 1. We also had the Braves top the Astros again. Looks like they got by with Iglesias closing it out with a bunch of runners on late in that game. 5-4, the Braves get it done. Coming up a little bit later, those Los Angeles Dodgers fans will be crying as they lost 2-0 again to the Nationals here. Could you imagine being at home, being the Dodgers, having that lineup, and you lose 2-0? You get absolutely shut out by Irving. Talk about embarrassing here. But if you really want embarrassing, watch the Rockies tonight as they host the Phillies. That's coming up here in just a few. The Angels taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. The Guardians at the Red Sox, and those will be your 3 remaining games of the day in Major League Baseball. And, of course, we will keep you posted on any of the final scores that may be coming up here in the next hour or so. In the meantime, we prep for the second night of play-in basketball. That's right, the NBA play-in tournament. We watched the West last night give us 2 games that were quite the yawn fest, 2 unders. But we also watched the Lakers get it done against the Pelicans. And the interesting storyline coming from that is that Zion Williamson, yes, Zion, you might have seen him dominating in that game yesterday, only to walk off the court with about 5 minutes left in apparent pain. Well, we learned what that pain was, and it is going to cost him another game, at least the next play-in game that they're going to have versus the Sacramento Kings, with who, of course, took care of business against the Golden State Warriors. And when I say the Kings took care of business, I meant Keegan Murray took care of business last night and handled the Golden State Warriors. So the Kings, they catch a break here as Zion, who was really unstoppable. If Zion's in that game last night, how many of you thought that maybe, just maybe, we'd be having a different conversation here today, and maybe the Lakers would, in fact, be the ones having to travel to play the Sacramento Kings. But instead, the hamstring, there it went. Zion, unfortunately, going to miss. And the story is, or at least the reports after an MRI was taken early today, is that even if they get by on Friday, the Sacramento Kings, it may be a little while longer before Zion is able to get back on the court. So unfortunate for Pelicans fans, unfortunate for New Orleans, who was just rolling with just over 3 minutes to go in that game yesterday against LeBron and company. It was a great bucket by Zion. Kind of banged in the middle there. Very difficult when he is driving the basketball to the hoop for guys to get in his way or to stop him, even Anthony Davis. And it looks like none of them stopped him last night. He stopped himself, at least. His hamstring is what stopped him there. So they're going to have to get it done minus Zion here Friday against Sacramento. And the Warriors, the questions remain. Is it over? Is that Warriors legendary dynasty, has it come to an end, as they in fact will have missed the postseason here, and for no other reason other than the two guys that are responsible for creating the dynasty, the Splash Brothers? Had anybody seen them last night? I heard there was people were looking on the back of milk cartons. They were trying to figure out if anybody had seen him, because Klay Thompson was absolutely nowhere to be found last night in one of the most epic failures in a very long time with the Splash Brothers last night. Golden State just could not hang with Keegan Murray and the Sacramento Kings, who had, by the way, up to that particular point this season, been atrocious at home, especially as a favorite. But it didn't make a difference because Murray was just absolutely in another world. A humiliating 118-94 play-in loss by the Golden State Warriors has a lot of people questioning whether or not it is over, including Warriors coach Steve Kerr, who said after that game that, he is planning and hopeful that Klay Thompson will be back, as well as Draymond and others. And, hey, listen, it was a hell of a run, but what goes up must always come down here. And Klay Thompson, unfortunately, picked the single worst game of the season to go MIA on. He had a few of those during this stretch here of the season. He had a couple of these last year as well, but he was trying to still come back from a couple of injuries which sidelined him over the last few years. But he's going to have plenty of time to heal up here and figure out what is next. The Warrior fan base is going to have to figure out what is next. But doesn't mean we don't have any more basketball to talk about, because the NBA tonight, the Miami Heat, yes, those Heat, taking on Philadelphia. We're going to break that game down when we get back. Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
There's going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We talked about the Ohtani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it. But the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire. only on SportsGrid.
Boy, if you passed him up as a Heisman Trophy winner and he lights the league on fire like C.J. Stroud over a Bryce Young, you might not make it as a head coach or in your regime here. I just don't think they can pass over Daniels at number 2.
He's sitting at 5.8 goals saved above average. He has been standing on top of his head for this team, but defense has to help him out a little bit. The Red Wings defense comes alive just a bit. I think that they're definitely going to punch their card.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The Early Line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
This sort
Night.
of has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We have some breaking news right now to share with you here. Game Time Decisions on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Thanks for stopping by. Apparently, Aaron Judge can hit. Had no idea. You wouldn't know it from his $150 batting average and the over $9 trillion he's making. But as it turns out, he actually delivered here for the Yankees in what looks like the top of the ninth, driving in a couple of runs, which means now the Yankees are trying to close out the Blue Jays and get a win at the Rogers Center. But Clay Holmes is on the mound for the Yankees, and anything is possible with that. But 6-4, the Yankees on top with 1 out here as the Yankees are trying to get one done. Finally scored enough runs here to be able to get it done today. Juan Soto continuing to crush the ball, by the way, 3 for 3. A .352 batting average on the season. And Judge with that big hit finally was 0 for 4 prior to that hit there in the top of the ninth, which drove in a couple of runs. Good news is, yes, 183 batting average, huh? I bet Yankee fans are ecstatic with that. Really overachieving this year. But plenty of baseball remains here. But we had mentioned also the Mariners look like they're going to get it done against the Reds 5-1. And the Rockies and the Phillies are just underway. So we will keep you posted with that game as well. So only 3 games tonight in the Major League Baseball schedule that we'll be keeping an eye on for you. And that Philly-Rockies game was, in fact, one of them. But a lot of attention is going to be put on the NBA once again with the play-in game set for tonight. And, of course, I'm a little biased with where I am broadcasting from here in Miami. So I do know this Heat team, know them pretty well, and I was there last year following them right through the finals as they got embarrassed by the Denver Nuggets there. But that doesn't mean that Heat culture isn't alive and well here. And I think the big question on everybody's mind is, what are we going to get from Miami here? Is this going to be a Miami team that we can trust that's going to be able to put it all together in time and make a playoff run like they have done for a while now, especially since last year when nobody thought they'd get out of the play-in game. I'm not even sure how they got out of that play-in game against Chicago, but they find themselves here tonight with an opportunity to play just one of these games and then get themselves in. If not, they're going to have to obviously play one more game and have to wait to see whether or not the old nemesis, the Chicago Bulls, who they happened to barely beat last year to get themselves into the playoffs, they may have to play the Atlanta Hawks as well. So a lot still to be decided. Both of the play-in games, by the way, both the West with Sacramento taking on the Pelicans, as well as whoever loses this game against the winner of the late game here tonight. Both those play-in games will be decided on Friday. But when we look at the number 8 seed, the Miami Heat, taking on the revamped Philadelphia 76ers, I can tell you this. I want nothing to do with this game or the Miami Heat from a side perspective, because I don't know what we're going to get from the Miami Heat. I do know the market thinks that the Miami Heat are going to be able to flip on a switch here and all of a sudden be able to turn into, Jimmy playoffs, Jimmy basketball. They're somehow or another going to just turn it on and become a team that they have not been for 82 games all year long. Now, they do have the history and have shown they're able to do this. The Miami Heat are one of the more dangerous teams in the NBA when they are firing on all cylinders, right? Miami plays the entire regular season looking to get to just this point, and then they kick it up a notch. So they have a history of flipping that switch. But this year, I don't know that I have the same confidence that this year is possible. Not to mention, the 76ers are on a 10-1 ATS run over their last 11 games. They come into this one with Joel Embiid on the floor. Now, whether he is 100% healthy or not remains to be seen. There are a lot of people that think he is maybe 70% at best. And I get it. Embiid is an absolute monster when he is on. And this team has shown they can certainly kick it up with Embiid on the floor as well as having Maxey on the floor. But the big question that we have here tonight, 6-0 straight up and against the number, is what Philadelphia has been since Embiid came back the final week of the regular season. The last 17 games, which includes a whole lot of games without Embiid, this has been a red-hot Sixers team. 11-5 straight up, 13-2-1 against the number. This is a team that has been just as consistent without Embiid this year as they have been with him returning here now. There's a lot less wear and tear on Embiid heading into this game than there has been in years past. But really, I wouldn't be worried about Embiid if I was the Miami Heat, because Embiid, you go up tempo with Embiid and you'll be good to go here. You kind of take him out. It's Tyrese Maxey that's going to be the problem. Why? Because he has absolutely smoked the Miami Heat in both games that they played in the regular season series. Averaged 27 points, 6.5 boards, 8.5 assists. The last game that they had was here in South Beach, and the Heat, once again, had no answer for Maxey. They also didn't have an answer for Embiid, which was also pretty embarrassing. I mean, that was unbelievable as Maxey and Embiid ended up scoring 68 points, 26 of 40 shooting the ball. And Miami threw everything in the kitchen sink at them to try to figure something out, but it just was not going to happen here. The problem I have with Miami is the fact that they have been inconsistent all year long, which is not totally out of the norm for the Miami Heat. But the best starting lineup that Miami has put together has not been great. They can't score. And that's the issue here. Now, they do have Duncan Robinson has been cleared. He'll be going tonight. Tyler Hero will be going. There will be no Rozier here, who was the guy that they traded for that was hopefully going to bring enough offensive punch to get them over the hump, but he's not available to him here tonight. It's going to have to rain threes for Miami here tonight, and the market agrees with me because the market has pushed this thing up from 4 to 4.5 to 5. Now 5.5s are in the market, and I do believe this thing will get as high as 6 before the opening tip here coming up in just about an hour. But got to tell you, I kind of like the over in this one. I think this total is a little bit light here. 207.5 right now is what we're seeing. And I can tell you this, Miami has been an absolute over machine down the stretch. 9-1 to the over in their final 10 games here. Why? Because Spoelstra said, we're not playing a half-court game. They've upped the tempo, and they are running much more in transition, which I believe is exactly what they're going to have to do here tonight. They don't want to play a half-court game with Embiid. I do think that they will get out in a transition. They will, in fact, play the kind of defense that might get them a couple of free turnovers, but so will Philly. Any which way you cut it, I think 207.5. A little bit light here tonight in that first play-in game in the East between Miami and Philadelphia. Now we have a second game that absolutely nobody asked for, but we're going to get between the Bulls and the Hawks. We'll see what Davis Maddock thinks about it when we get back here on Game Time Decisions.
There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We talked about the Ohtani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it. But the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Boy, if you passed him up as a Heisman Trophy winner and he lights the league on fire like C.J. Stroud over a Bryce Young, you might not make it as a head coach or near regime here. I just don't think they can pass over Daniels at number 2.
He's sitting at 5.8 goals, saved above average. He has been standing on top of his head for this team, but defense has to help him out a little bit. The Red Wings defense comes alive just a bit. I think that they're definitely going to punch their card.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
All right, welcome back in here. Game Time Decisions on the Sports Grid Network. A very happy Wednesday to you. Getaway day in Major League Baseball. Only a couple of games coming up on the night slate here. We'll talk some MLB in just a minute, but we welcome in our good friend Davis Maddox to the house as we've got NBA play-in basketball. Still got a couple of teams here trying to figure out which way they're going, Davis, including that wonderful, 9-10 seed of the Hawks and the Bulls. But I just talked Philadelphia and Miami, and, I'm not too far from the Miami Heat, so I'm a little worried about this team this year. How did you approach looking at this game with the Sixers and Miami? We'll start with that one.
I mean, look, I have very good news for you if you're worried about the Miami Heat, which is that losing this game, it doesn't really matter because whoever ends up winning, Hawks, Bulls, doesn't want to be there, doesn't care. I'm going to guess theoretical look-ahead line. The 76ers would be 11.5-point favorites over whichever team wins that game, and the Heat will be 8.5-point favorites over whichever team wins that game. Honestly, if it's the Bulls, they might be more than 8.5-point favorites. You know as well as I do, the Heat chips are down. Playoff time. Like, this is a team, I mean, their previous finals run, not only were they a play-in team, they lost this game. They lost this game, had to win the second game to get in, fought their way through. Now, do I think they're going to win this game? I do not. I think the 76ers are going to handle their business here. Joel Embiid is probably the second best player on the planet when he's healthy. I mean, kind of depending on where you want to put him with Luka and with Shea and with Giannis. He's definitely one of the 5 best players. And Miami's a very good team. Miami's definitely the better coach team. No disrespect to Nick Nurse. I think Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA. But the 76ers are the better team. They're going to handle their bit. They were undefeated since Embiid came back with this meniscus injury with Embiid in the lineup.
Yeah, not just, I mean, they have been on a heck of a run, 8-game winning streak here. And it's, quite honestly, why he's still nursing. Maxey, to me, is still the best player maybe on the court here tonight because Miami's had no answer for him every time they've played him this year. And now you throw Embiid in there. It's an interesting matchup here, one that I don't think Miami is looking forward to. But like you said, what's the big deal? They've been here and they have done that before. So what happens now tonight? I know you got a same-game parlay in this. Now, let me ask you this here. With this 9-10 matchup, I've been calling around. Somebody has to win it, right? We can't just pretend like it doesn't have. It's like somebody has to win this game. So why don't we start with the same-game parlay, and we'll work back from there. Tell us, what are you looking at in this matchup?
All right, well, you can tell from the same game parlay, I was not feeling all that confident about either team in it. Normally, I do take a side just because it's more helpful to correlate. Did not take a side in this one. Beginning over 222. This Hawks lineup without Jalen Johnson, they're just going super small. DeAndre Hunt at power forward. So they're basically going 2 wings, 2 guards, 1 big. The Bulls, and they're not a very good NBA team. They are a big NBA team. Caruso and Kobe White, 2 of the bigger guards. Then they play the 2 big wings, DeRozan, Williams, whoever. They want to go there as the 4th guy with Vooch. And neither of these 2 teams are that strong defensively, right? And the Hawks are terrible defensively. The Bulls are like just below average. And then one thing we do know, I mean, Trae Young in this spot, he's going to play like 41 minutes. He's going to get up. I was saying this morning, I think the line should probably be like 19.5 field goal attempts for Trae Young in this game. It's just what he does. So we're taking Trae Young to add 20 or more points. We're going to take Kobe White to make 2.5 or more 3-pointers. And then Trae Young and Dejounte Murray, they don't handle the ball all that well. So we're going to take Caruso to record 2 or more steals in this game. That gets us right around plus 489 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Again, not taking a side here, because if these teams don't care, why should I be incentivized to care?
I mean, the Hawks 0-6 down the stretch in the final 6 regular season games, 1-7 in their last 8 against the number. This team has been horrific. But can I make the argument that they were actually better without Trae Young? This whole idea of bringing him back, they were a slower tempo team, so it was a lot more unders with the Hawks. I can't imagine trying to sweat out an under in this game here tonight. Can you?
Well, they were better defensively without Trae because they got bigger. They were playing, Bogdan as the off guard. Dejounte Murray actually weirdly, they have good defensive players. That's the weirdest thing. Quinn Snyder is a good coach. They have good defensive players. Dejounte Murray is a very good guard. Capella and Onyeka Okongwu are good defensive bigs. Jalen Johnson is a good defensive, forward/wing. And they really, it was just, and they also played some of the 2 center lineups when Trae Young was out. They were playing Capella and Okongwu together, which are going to be terrible offensively, but better defensively. They're going the total opposite way now because Sadiq Bey is out for the season as well, and Okongwu is not going to be playing here either. So we're going to see some crazy small lineups probably for stretches out of the Hawks. They'll go Young, Murray, Bogdanovich, Hunter, and then Bruno Fernando or Garrison Matthews. They might even have Hunter playing backup center here. It's just, it's what do you want out of the Atlanta Hawks? It's just a mess. I mean, the biggest story about the Atlanta Hawks right now is not, we might make a run in the playoffs out of this 36-win season. It's all the reporting that Trae Young is not going to be a Hawk next year, or Murray's not going to be a Hawk next year, or both of them are not going to be a Hawk next year. That's all anyone cares about with the Hawks.
That writing's been on the wall a long, long time. They're going to have to figure out they're going to keep firing coaches. What are you going to do here? You got to make a decision here with whether or not you can build a winning team around Trae Young in that locker room here. Also, I guess if you're the Pelicans, you have to figure out how are we going to make it through a legit full season without Zion getting hurt at some point when it matters the most. They're going to have to do it against Sacramento without him. I don't think Keegan Murray's going to have the kind of night that he had against Golden State. Maybe he will repeat it, but my goodness here. What are you going to do with the Pelicans? Who do you trust in that look-ahead spot here in the West on Friday?
I mean, the one way it could work for them, they're not going to win a series without Zion because they're too thin. They just have have no one big enough, right? They can't rebound enough. Because Willie Green hates Jonas Valanciunas, which I don't know. I kind of get it. He's not a real big winning NBA player. But Zion is the only other big on the roster that he'll play because Larry Nance is a fine, good backup center. He's good to close games. He can put the ball on the floor. He can shoot some threes, whatever. But it's not going to work against, it's not going to work against Denver. It's not going to work against Oklahoma City. It's not going to work against Minnesota. It just doesn't work that way. Maybe they'll be. If they really wanted to do the crazy thing, and I don't think they would, is they would just insert Trey Murphy as in a Zion spot and actually just start Nance and then do Nance, Brandon Ingram, and Trey Murphy and Herb Jones all together. Which is a lineup that I don't know what rebounding rate would they give up on defense? Opposing whoever they end up playing would rebound 35% of their misses, but they'd at least make a lot of shots. They could blitz Sacramento in one night in that way and kind of take them by surprise.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's not the craziest thing that we've heard, right? So go small there, chuck up a bunch of shots. Because it's not like Sacramento's known to be this wonderful defensive team. Sure, Sabonis is going to get a double-double, but who's going to lay the $5 to get that anyway as a prop? So nobody. But it is an intriguing matchup, and the rumor is now, I guess, you got to blow up Golden State, right? It's over, right? I mean, you're going to have Steph, which is always nice to build around, but it's kind of over in Golden State, isn't it?
I mean, the organization definitely feels some loyalty to Curry to try and put together a winning roster, but you really could argue that it's not. I mean, you not even argue; it just is true. This is not a good enough roster to win championships. So you're not going to retain Chris Paul. You're not going to retain Klay Thompson. Now, if Klay Thompson wants to play for you for what his actual market value would be, 2 years, $16 million or something, sure, whatever, bring him back. He's not going to do that. Clay, I think maybe he would. Clay's a different dude, but I don't think he will. So Paul's gone. Clay's gone. You don't really want Wiggins on this contract number. I don't know if you can do anything to get off that number.
No.
But remember, the Warriors, the 10-seed Warriors, are the most expensive team in NBA history. They are costing that ownership group, I believe it's $3.25 for every dollar on the roster, which means they're paying like $250 million for this roster. It's just insane. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you do. You let everyone go and you say, Steph, this is Brandon Pajemski, this is Moses Moody, this is Jonathan Kuminga, this is Trace Jackson Davis. We're going to try and run it back with these guys. And if you can make something happen, it'll happen. But they are out of moves to make. They have no more, especially the new collective bargaining agreement kicks in, and they can't aggregate those salaries. I mean, this is real nerd stuff here. But basically what it means is once you've spent X amount of dollars, you can't put Brandon Pajemski and Klay Thompson's money together to trade for a player, which makes it basically really in practice, it means you can't make trades. So what do you even do?
Yep. You light a match and start from scratch because that could very well be the only choice that they have here. And like you said, is there any loyalty with Klay? Draymond's not come back, right? Draymond's done?
I just don't see how financially it makes any sense for anyone involved because the Warriors won't want to pay him, and Draymond should go get one more big check, right?
You think? Yeah. I was wondering if he'd just retire, just be like, I'm done. You know, it's been a hell of a run. I want to end a Golden State Warrior, but he'll go get the money. Who are we kidding? Anything is possible there. Davis, I appreciate you swinging by, my man. Good luck with that same game parlay. Game Time Decisions continues here on the grid.
There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We talked about the Ohtani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it, but the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Boy, if you passed him up as a Heisman Trophy winner and he lights the league on fire like C.J. Stroud over a Bryce Young, you might not make it as a head coach or in your regime here. I just don't think they can pass over Daniels at number 2.
He's sitting at 5.8 goals saved above average. He has been standing on top of his head for this team, but defense has to help him out a little bit. The Red Wings defense comes alive just a bit. I think that they're definitely going to punch their card.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The Early Line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in here. Game Time Decisions on the Sports Grid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by as we get ready for some NBA play-in basketball here tonight. Sixers and the Heat coming up here within the hour. And then, of course, that wonderful 9-10 matchup between Chicago, the Bulls, taking on the Atlanta Hawks. I really do feel like there should be some sort of law against teams who can barely make 500, under 500, should be making the playoffs in any way, shape, or form. I guess they don't consider this the playoffs because it's considered the play-in, but give me a break. They should be absolutely be nowhere near any extra basketball and torture the fan bases of having to tune in to one more game of either, quite honestly, the Bulls or the Hawks here. But the winner will have one more game that they have to play, and that will be against whoever loses this first game up here between Miami and Philadelphia. So a lot still to be decided, including who's going to be next here. Who the winner of tonight's Miami and the Sixers game, well, they're going to move on here, right? So they're going to take on what will be the New York Knicks as the number 2 seed here. And I'll say this about the Chicago Bulls. They had nothing to play for in that final game against the Knicks. Nothing. And the fact that they laid it all out against that Knicks team in the Garden with nothing to gain because they were already locked into this game against Atlanta and they knew it, but they did not under any circumstances roll over. They took the Knicks to the wire, had to go to overtime. Now the Knicks were battling for a 2 seed. They knew it. So we expected that kind of effort from the Knicks, but the Bulls with absolutely nothing to gain, I think they showed me a little something in that game there. And now the Hawks, who really, what are you doing here? I don't expect a whole lot from them, but there is no way, shape, or form I could watch this game tonight and be rooting for an under with two teams that play absolutely zero defense all year long. So I do think that the over is the way to go there, and I would more than happy looking at the Chicago, and the market agrees because we're starting to see this thing creep up to 3.5 now in a lot of spots. So the market, I think, tends to agree with me here that the Bulls are definitely at home the right side in this one here. We do have, of course, getaway day here in Major League Baseball, which means we've got some afternoon baseball, a lot of afternoon games, in fact, have just wrapped up. We do have a couple of games that have just gotten underway. The Rockies and the Phillies have wasted no time smacking around Feltner. It is a 4-1 Phillies lead right now in the bottom of the second inning here. So both teams getting off early offensively here. So the over is looking pretty good, Philadelphia and Colorado. And if it's offense you like, the White Sox is not a team you should be looking at in any way, shape, or form, as they do have somehow a 1-0 lead over the Royals here in the top of the 6th. Royals had already won game 1, which was earlier this afternoon, but now the White Sox somehow figured out how to score a run, and it is a 1-0 game there in the 6th inning, but the under all day long. And that seems to be the direction we're going to go here, Kurtz, I think, at least for the foreseeable future. The White Sox will be a under team until further notice here. And maybe, just maybe, the Royals. I don't know, Kurtz. I'm looking at that future market and going, should we wait or should we jump in? Because I'm a believer of this pitching staff. I'll tell you that. If they handle business against the weaker teams like the White Sox and Detroit, this is a much better offensive team than the rest of those teams in that division. Is that fair?
I think that is fair. Actually, I don't even know if it's all that close. Who do we love on Minnesota? Buxton, who can never stay healthy. Yeah. Correa, who can never stay healthy. You already said the White Sox are a joke. You know, the Indian Guardians, the Guardians, they have some hitters. You got Ramirez there, but it's not a great hitting division. I might have my doubts about the Kansas City pitching staff. I do like Singer, a solid, SP3 here. Joe, are they going to shut down Reagans at some point? They're going to have an innings limit, a pitch count, that sort of garbage. We saw that with Jones last night on the Pirates. Pitched 5 innings, looked like the second coming of Sandy Koufax, and they pull him. It's frustrating with how these teams baby these pitchers nowadays. But that would be my only worry there. And then, of course, come trade deadline, will they make the acquisition? Or even small acquisitions to really go for it. It's a weak division. We know that. I think you have to like what the Royals are doing here. Witt's a superstar. Pasquantino, he can hit. This man can hit here. Get another bat or two, guys who we don't expect. And, I think this team will contend.
Yeah, and you got the old guard there. Perez still behind the dish there, still smashing the baseball, though. So it's a nice mix there with Kansas City, and they finally invested in a superstar there in Witt, which I think told you that this organization is serious about contending, because there's a lot of organizations would not lock up a kid like that for that kind of money. They try to bail on him and see what they can get for him down the road here. The Yankees finally won a game at the Rogers Center, and George, did you hear the breaking news? Aaron Judge can, in fact, get on base and hit the ball. It wasn't a big hit, but it was one in the top of the ninth that worked out. Nice 1-for-5 day for him, but it's good to see the Yankees didn't roll over and get swept to this point here by Toronto. A good 6-4 win, but my goodness, I guess it had to come at some point, right? They're not going to win every game, George, right?
No, they're not. And you mentioned, if you're an optimist, you had a nice comeback today against the Toronto team, right? Yeah. With their ace on the mound, and Kevin Gausman. I know he's still working through spring. The fact that he missed most of spring training. Judge is the same problem, by the way. He missed most of spring training as well here. I think they're both sort of behind the 8 ball here. But a nice win for the Yankees to break that 3-game losing streak. The problem is the Yankees, boy, Joe, they look an awful lot like the Yankees team from last year. They don't hit. People on base they struggle with. Their defense, especially the right side, Rizzo and Gleyber Torres. What is going on? They can't catch the ball. So that's an issue as well. And Stroman gave him a good outing today, but they're starting pitching, and this was to be expected here when you got Nestor Cortez, Louis Hill, Clark Schmidt. If you get 5 innings, it's celebration time. Anything more than that, forget it. With the biggest party here, that bullpen is going to be dead by Memorial Day. It's going to be a big problem for the Yankees. They need length out of their starters.
Yeah, they're going to have to figure some things out. Soto is absolutely mashing the ball, which is great. So should be an interesting next couple of months here as we get into the summer days with the Yankees. You do have a couple of games that remain here tonight. Rays, Angels, and the Red Sox taking on those Guardians. Houck versus Lively there. Little versus Detmers here. I took a shot with the Angels in the first 5. I like Detmers here. So I think the Angels... Isn't it amazing how much better Trout looks now that Ohtani is gone? It's kind of crazy here, but he really is the end-all, be-all for the Angels, and he's getting it done, and so are the guys around him to this point.
Once again, why does anyone pitch to Mike Trout? Why?
No idea. No idea.
If someone is the base is loaded, if someone's on first, fine, I see it. But other than that, why are you pitching to the guy? Mike, take your base. And I know Taylor Ward's doing a good job behind him, right? I get that, but he's got to prove it to me over and over and over again. I'm not letting Mike Trout beat me. I'm just a huge believer in that. I'm not letting the big man beat me. This goes back to Joe Torre with the Boston Red Sox, always letting Manny Ramirez or David Ortiz beat the Yankees. It's the most frustrating thing when you had a base open here. Stop letting the other team's best player beat you. It's one thing I always loved about Bill Belichick, right? as a defensive coordinator, he would always want to take away what the other team does best. Let the secondary guys beat you. All right. I feel the same way in baseball here. I just don't. The Angels don't have anything else. All right. Like I said, let Taylor Ward beat me. Right. Let Anthony Rendon do anything to beat me, but it's not going to be Mike Trout. That being said, I'm on the same small play, but same play as you. I like Reed Detmers as well here tonight against the Rays.
Yeah, I like him early in that one here, and the Royals are threatening, by the way, top of the sixth against the White Sox. They already won game one. We'll see if they can do it in game two. But we also have a couple of games that really mean nothing to these teams tonight in the NHL. What would have been a great night of hockey, Maple Leafs Lightning, right? We would have had Blues Stars, Penguins Islanders, your Islanders, but who's playing for anything here tonight? And should we just take all the dogs?
You know, Toronto, Austin Matthews going for the 70th, right? I guess that's a thing. But here's what I would worry. Let's just say for giggles here, he gets that goal in the first 3 minutes of the game. Does he play again?
Right.
You know,
no, exactly.
It's an arbitrary number, 70. You know, why not 68? Why not 72? It's 70. I get it. No one's done it in forever. But if he gets that goal early, I think they would pull him and sit him. We've seen that throughout hockey yesterday, right? Where Carolina sat everybody and they lost. They got crushed by Columbus 6-3 here. Islanders already announced that Barzal won't play tonight. Thompson's not playing tonight. Pittsburgh, I sort of lean towards them, but maybe they're packing it up too. It's so hard to bet these games now because they have nothing to play for. You mentioned Tampa Bay. Right. They're already an older team. All right, they're not going to do anything stupid tonight. Let's just skate around, not hit anybody. We're going to see a lot of this tonight here. So, yes, it's frustrating. The same thing tomorrow night, by the way, in the NHL. This is all a tease now until the playoffs start on Saturday about trying to figure out who's going for it and who's not. Very few of these games mean anything to anybody.
Yeah, no, they absolutely don't. We did learn, of course, I believe the Rangers, your President's Cup winner. Is it that the kiss of death, Kurtz? And that right? We should bet against them at all costs now. They'll probably get swept in this first round here. My goodness.
I'll tell you what, I don't really believe in curses, but if the Capitals beat the Rangers, I will be converted. All right, I will be converted.
We say that every year.
We do, but come on. Do you realize Washington, the Capitals, they've been outscored by their opponents in every period. First period, second period, third period, and overtime. Yet this is a playoff team. All right, it's all about Charlie Lindgren. He's been fantastic this season. But really, how does this team beat the Rangers? I mean, how? Other than a sniper coming out and taking out, Kreider, Shesterkin, Fox. It's not going to happen here. No, I'm on the Rangers in this series. I have them in 5. I'll give Washington a game. Maybe they win game 3, the first home game. But this wouldn't shock me if it's a sweep. I would actually be further shocked if he gets to 6 games. If the Capitals somehow win 2, I'd be floored here. I think this is maybe the easiest series in the first round of the playoffs.
Wow, easiest series is what Kurt said there. I kind of like that there. So we do have Islanders ready to go. Pittsburgh has to be disheartened, no? I mean, even Penguin fans with Crosby, and they really thought they were going to get it there, Kurt, didn't they? And so did Detroit, really.
I think everyone's sort of disheartened, right? Not only Pittsburgh thought they were going to get in, but the NHL would have liked to have seen Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and company get in as well. They get Ovechkin. Don't get me wrong, not the worst thing. But it really wouldn't have mattered anyway. They would have lost to the Rangers as well. Although I think they could have given the Rangers a better series than the Capitals will.
I agree. But, hey, they've been playing pretty much playoff hockey down the stretch, Washington to get here. So we'll see what happens. Kurtz, appreciate it, my man. Game Time Decisions. We'll wrap up number 1 next here on the Grid.
There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The
talked about the Ohtani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it, but the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Boy, if you passed him up as a Heisman Trophy winner and he lights the league on fire like C.J. Stroud over a Bryce Young, you might not make it as a head coach or in your regime here. I just don't think they can pass over Daniels at number 2.
He's sitting at 5.8 goals saved above average. He has been standing on top of his head for this team, but defense has to help him out a little bit. The Red Wings defense comes alive just a bit. I think that they're definitely going to punch their card.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The Early Line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here as we look to close out this first hour. We've got much more to get to, including in just a couple of minutes, we'll have the opening tip for the play-in game for the 7-8 seed there. That's the Miami Heat taking on the Philadelphia 76ers. That's going to be from the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. And again, the Sixers laying 5.5 right now. That total hovering around 207.5 and 208. That'll be followed up by the Bulls Hawks from the United Center in Chicago. That's coming up at 9:30 Eastern, or I would imagine as soon as the Heat and the Sixers are done. Only one game in Major League Baseball. Well, actually a couple of games in Major League Baseball right now. White Sox with another solo home run have now gone up 2-0 over the Royals. And boy, oh boy, it's getting fun there with Philly. 4-1 still in Citizens Bank Ballpark. So can the Phillies and the Sixers win on the same night in the same city? That's going to be, I bet you that is a prop somewhere that we'll have to look. Is maybe there could be a couple of folks maybe dabbling in a Philadelphia money line parlay. They'll take the Phillies and they'll take the Sixers to get it done. I am not buying that entirely, as I do like one baseball game here tonight and one of these plays on the basketball court here coming up in that Miami and Philadelphia game. We'll cover that next hour. We also have another golf tournament coming up, the RBC, right after the Masters. Of course, nobody better than Brady Cannon to talk some PGA golf. We'll get him on, and I'll say it again. If he picks Xander Schauffele, I'm walking off set. That'll be the end of that. So much more still to come here as Game Time Decisions on this Wednesday will continue here on the Sports Grid Network. Come back and join us. All right, welcome in. It is Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network, off and running for another hour here as we are getting ready for a little NBA play-in. That's right, get ready for the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. That'll be game one here tonight of a two-game slate. That'll be followed up by everyone's favorite 9-10 seed play-in game between the Atlanta Hawks and the Chicago Bulls here. But we are just moments away from the opening tip there in Philadelphia. Jimmy Butler and company ready to have another run at it this year. The only difference is I believe Tyler Hero is actually playing and not hurt. Duncan Robinson was cleared for Miami, which is good news. No Rozier. Obviously, they traded for him to try and help a stagnant offense get a little less stagnant. And it worked at times here down the stretch, but unfortunately, he's a no-go in this game. So it's going to have to be bombs away from the Miami Heat here tonight if they are going to be able to punch their ticket. And then the question is, if I'm the New York Knicks right now, who would I rather play? Would I rather the Miami Heat or would I rather the Philadelphia 76ers? Because we know the New York Knicks are going to be watching this game very carefully here, knowing that, the team that they'll be facing will be the winner of this game. It's an intriguing matchup in both ways, but I gotta tend to think that they would not mind the 76ers here in this matchup, and I don't think Boston wants anything to do with the Miami Heat one way or the other. So I think Boston is figuring out, hey, why don't they just beat Philadelphia? Philadelphia will beat whoever wins the Chicago and Atlanta game, and take your luck at the Sixers there. The last thing I believe Boston wants as a major favorite is to have to worry about the Miami Heat and playoff Miami showing up. But they're going to have to get through the Sixers first. 10-1 against the number over their last 11 games. 8 straight is what the Sixers have won, and they are looking to continue that winning streak here tonight. I did play the over in this one at 207 tonight. I do not believe that we are going to get a slog fest, so to speak, of nothing but missed shots and slow tempo. I don't think that's what we're going to get from Spoelstra in Miami. The last time these teams played, even without, I believe, there were a couple of guys missing for Miami in that last one. And we know that Maxey just owns Miami and torches them, averaging 28, 29 points a game this season when they have played. You throw Embiid in there, and of course, Bam Adebayo has not had great success against him. So the last game that they played, April 4th, I believe it was, that landed 214. We're at 207 and a half here tonight. And if the threes are falling, and I believe they're going to have to fall here for the Miami Heat, and we all know Tyler Hero will take them. We know Duncan Robinson will take them. Kevin Love will take them. If those start to fall, it's going to be an interesting game here, one that I definitely think is going to get us enough points to get up and over there. The big story today, though, if you have not heard, was the health of Zion Williamson, who will not be available for the New Orleans Pelicans, who lost him with about 3 minutes left to go in the game last night against the Lakers, a game in which was tied or was within a bucket. And then Zion, after driving to the hoops, making a layup, unfortunately went straight back to the locker room. As it turns out, an MRI lets us know that's going to be a hamstring problem. And that means not only is he going to miss the game on Friday, but chances are if they do win that game, he's going to miss some time after that with the Pelicans. So not a great situation there for the Pelicans at all. Sacramento, good luck trying to figure out which Sacramento team shows up and when, because they have been an absolute adventure this year. But there is no denying that Keegan Murray has done an amazing job of kind of acclimating himself here to the NBA, finding his niche there with the Kings, and having a absolutely unbelievable night last night. 32 points, 9 rebounds. The guy made almost every three that he chucked up there. He is a big-time weapon for Sacramento, and they're going to need him since Malik Monk went down earlier in the season for them. But he has really stepped up his game, and now the Kings are just a win away from getting themselves into the dance, right? You got to be there. You got to be in it to win it. With the Aaron Fox and Keegan Murray, mix in Sabonis, you've got plenty of firepower there for Sacramento, who is going to have to get by a Pelicans team that won't have their best weapon, Zion Williams. Unfortunately, now he is going to be down. But early returns, as you can see there, 1.5, 214.5 is what we are seeing for a total. I would like to say that New Orleans has some sort of great home court advantage, but as we saw last night, they don't have any home court advantage. You would think they do, but no, they do not. So rough night last night for New Orleans. They lost in a whole lot of ways in that game, but Sacramento, and then we'll have a go at it on Friday. And then, of course, the winner of this Philadelphia and Miami game, which is coming up, while the winner will take on the New York Knicks, the loser will get ready to play whoever wins the late game here tonight. And unfortunately, we double-checked. There can't be – both of them can't lose. As much as we want that to happen, it can't happen. One of them has to win this game between the Bulls and the Hawks here tonight, and their prize will be they get to play one extra game against either the Sixers or the Heat. And as you can tell, I'm starting to see 3.5. The total is starting to creep up, and I agreed with that movement big time here tonight, as I do think we are going to get some points with Trae Young out on the court there for the Atlanta Hawks. Another very interesting story we'll dive into a little bit later on was the lifetime ban in the NBA of Jontay Porter. I do not believe we've ever had a lifetime ban for betting in the NBA, but there is kind of a first time for everything. So the NBA jacking down a lifetime ban. The Pete Rose. Oh, nobody wants that, but Jontay Porter deserves it. The story is unbelievable. We'll share that with you coming up, and we'll talk a little PGA golf. Brady Cannon will step in. We'll do that next year on Game Time Decisions.
There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We talked about the Ohtani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it. But the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Boy, if you passed him up as a Heisman Trophy winner and he lights the league on fire like C.J. Stroud over a Bryce Young, you might not make it as a head coach or in your regime here. I just don't think they can pass over Daniels at number 2.
He's sitting at 5.8 goals saved above average. He has been standing on top of his head for this team, but defense has to help him out a little bit. The Red Wings defense comes alive just a bit. I think that they're definitely going to punch their card.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The Early Line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network as we get ready for some NBA action. Miami taking on the Sixers. That's getting ready to tip off here in just a few. But we just got off a weekend at the Masters at Augusta here, in which, guess who? No, not Tiger Woods. Scotty Scheffler, the other Tiger Woods now that nobody seems to talk about. Gets it done, wins that second green jacket. What a week it was, and what a profitable ride it was, too, as Brady Cannon steps in here, our good friend. And Hal, Brady, you and I, we did the show last week. I told everyone, friends don't let friends bet Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, but to your credit, you kind of beat me down and talked me into a top 10, top 20 bet, and voila. The man delivers. Just don't bet him to win tournaments, and you'll be fine. And I'm already seeing a lot of people betting him this week for the RBC. Like, no, don't bet him to win the tournament. Or should we this week?
I do know some sharp players that are on Schauffele. I spoke with a bookmaker at the Westgate Superbook, and not only Schauffele this week, but also Shane Lowry. For me, Lowry makes a little bit more sense. He's been here 6 times. He's finished 9th, and he's also finished 3rd twice. And if you go back to what he did at Augusta, he couldn't putt worth a lick. He lost over 8 strokes on the greens putting. But his iron play, he was number one in the field for strokes gained approach. So Lowry really had it dialed in with the irons. Obviously, you need that every week, but especially here at Harbor Town, it's like a polar opposite of Augusta. You go from this behemoth property with wide fairways and huge undulated greens and uneven lies to a totally flat course that feels crowded with all the overhanging trees and narrow fairways and tiny, small greens, the second smallest greens on the entire tour rotation. So there's just really, nothing similar about the two courses. Like I say, really polar opposites in size and style. And so I went with a lot of guys that hit the ball extremely accurate off the tee, can scramble around these greens because you're going to miss some. These greens are so small, you're going to miss some. So you got to get up and down. And then guys that are really good with the irons. And I stayed away, Joe, from some of those guys that finished top 10 last week at the Masters, including Xander Schauffele, because I think there's something to, and obviously Schauffele, more so at least the same as anybody else, was really grinding last week. He played outstanding. He had very few bogeys. He had a bogey-free round on Saturday. He didn't make a ton of birdies, but he had a lot of clean scorecards, and you thought he might really shine on Sunday and put together a low number. He didn't, but he got that top 10 finish for you and I, and now that is 12 top 10 finishes in majors. To your point, hasn't won one yet, but just a consistent top 10 player in these big events. And this is a big one this week. It's a signature event, of course, with all the stars out here at Harbor Town.
Yep. Yeah, and it's funny because it should be mentioned here too when you say signature event, right? Well, I mean, I know the Genesis was a signature. Arnold Palmer was a signature. So for those watching that don't know what that means, there's no cut, right? Is that basically what we got here, Bray? It's a smaller field, and there's going to be there is no cut line. So you start this tournament on Thursday, you're playing right through Sunday, which makes handicapping a little bit different here, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think you're still zeroing in on the players that you figure are going to have success, but, the head-to-head matchups don't necessarily end after 2 days and, one guy misses the cut. Signature event means you're right, no cut, smaller field, but that field is loaded with star power. Basically, all the top PGA Tour stars are here. Scotty Scheffler's back right off of his win. Speaking of Scheffler, maybe he and Sam Burns might be the only guys not here for the weekend. They are both still expecting the birth of their first child. So they couldn't miss the cut and get out of Dodge in this case. They'd have to withdraw from the tournament. And that is still on the table for both of these guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is. But when you look at this field, and you're right, it is loaded. But there are some names here that, boy, oh boy, it was awful at the Masters. But, you're going from Augusta to a Pete Dye course with postage stamp greens, back to Bermuda. Here we go. And some of these guys they have to be looking against Bassman. Like JT, like what is going on? How many more caddies are you going to fire before you start to realize that maybe it ain't the Bo, it's the Indian, my man? Like what there are some guys that could use a bounce back here this week.
Oh, no doubt about it. And I really stayed away from the top names in the field. Like I told you, I didn't really want to go to a guy that was in the throes of that battle over the weekend at the Masters. I mean, that takes a toll on the body, on the mind. I liked guys that made the cut. I played one guy this week, Brendan Todd, that was not at the Masters. Okay, so he's got a week off, didn't have to deal with that. Got him at 100-1. I've seen him now trading around 80-1. That's probably my floor price right there. I wouldn't go any lower than 80. But if you recall, you mentioned the Arnold Palmer, another signature event. Brendan Todd finished 6th there. And the week before the Masters at the Valero Texas Open, he finished 5th. So I think the form is still there. He's extremely accurate off the tee. He's great around the greens. So I took a shot with him at a big number. But going back to some of these guys that were really in the thick of the battle here, I went further down the board. I went with Siwoo Kim, who finished 30th. I went with Russell Henley, who finished 38th. I went with Chris Kirk, who finished 16th. I went with some guys that played really well and had good stats, had a relatively pedestrian finish, stress-free. And for them, maybe it's more like just another tour week. And I know it's not, it's a major, but they didn't have that high stress level. You know, they weren't competing with Scotty Scheffler and Oberg and Fleetwood and those guys trying to claw their way. You know, they probably had a relatively stress-free weekend. And I think that sets them up nicely for Harbortown here this week because they played well. But they didn't have to be involved in so much of that mental and physical task that coming down the stretch on the weekend can have you at Augusta.
What about guys that did make it? Because I saw Wyndham Clark about 35 to 1 in this one. He didn't make the cut. He was left out of the Masters, but he's got a pretty good history on Carolina courses. I think he won at Quail Hollow. And you would think he is going to be like, no, that didn't set well with him here. If he had made the cut, we're probably 18 to 1, 17 to 1, somewhere along those lines.
It's very possible. And it's a good point that you bring up that he won at Quail Hollow, another signature event. I actually went against Wyndham Clark this week in a couple of head-to-head matchups. You know, I may have a screw loose here because in signature events, he's won 2 and he's finished runner-up in another. But I don't think this course really matches his game. He's been here 6 times. He's never finished better than 29th. And you mentioned he might be out for blood after missing the cut last week. But again, I don't think the course matches his game. And I also don't really like the heat that he took for those asinine comments about, I got no problem with the live guys. They only play 54 holes. The overconfidence that I thought he had, you know, and then Augusta came back and bit him hard and he missed the cut. And I wonder if there's still some fallout from that. Again, the match of the course I don't think is perfect. So I took Cameron Young, who had yet another really good Masters, wasn't quite in the battle down the stretch, was able to record a top 10, playing well. He's gained strokes putting the last 2 weeks, believe it or not, as well. So I took Cameron Young in a matchup over Wyndham Clark, and then also took Russell Henley, minus 125 over Clark. Russell Henley is the perfect fit for this shorter knocker, accurate hitter type golf course that we have here this week.
Yeah, love Cameron Young. He's going to get one at some particular point here.
Might be this week.
Brady Cannon, we appreciate it as always. Cash those tickets. We'll be back.
There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We talked about the Ohtani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it, but the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Boy, if you passed him up as a Heisman Trophy winner and he lights the league on fire like C.J. Stroud over a Bryce Young, you might not make it as a head coach or in your regime here. I just don't think they can pass over Daniels at number 2.
He's sitting at 5.8 goals, saved above average. He has been standing on top of his head for this team, but defense has to help him out a little bit. The Red Wings defense comes alive just a bit. I think that they're definitely going to punch their card.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early
The
line.
magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in here. Game Time Decisions on the Sports Grid Network, as we've got a couple of games in Major League Baseball underway, a couple more, or at least one more, getting ready to start here at Fenway Park. But the Royals still down a run right now in Game 2, top of the 8th, 2-1. White Sox on top there. Phillies, top of the 5th, still up 4-1. They scored all those runs early against Colorado here. Top of the 5th now. And the Angels just gave up a run. It's 1-1 there, heading to the top of the 3rd against Tampa. And also, speaking of Philly, we got another Philly fan in the house here. I'll give you 3 guesses as to who Dave Sharapan might be rooting for here tonight, as it is a 4-2 start right now. Philadelphia and Miami. And it's been Brick City so far here. Not a lot of offense, Dave. But that, I would imagine you're on the Atlanta Hawks with that outfit here tonight. What are you thinking? What are you thinking here?
You might need to borrow my listening glasses, Joe. Put those things on. That's a 76ers hat, Joe. I broke out the fine china for the playoffs. Okay, we're ready to go. Listen, I'm kind of in mourning. All right, you know it's nighttime in Pittsburgh behind me, and last night's craziness, while I was on with Wetzel on In-Game Live, ended the Penguins' chances. I was all excited to come on today and talk about hockey and Penguins and Islanders and chances of making the playoffs, all to lose in the first round anyway. So they probably did us a favor. That's fine.
Yeah.
At least tonight, if the Sixers lose, which I don't think they're going to do, they can play again another game. So it's not the end, all right? It's more like the beginning. I think they win tonight, don't cover. I think the game goes under. That's where we're at as far as side and total, and that's what we got our eye on the basketball game. Joe, I have no idea, none, what to think or like or do with the other game, Atlanta and Chicago. I really don't know. I've been going back and forth. Do you have any strong opinion about this game, either the side or the total?
Yeah, I can't imagine watching this game and sweating out an under. Like, I just can't see it happening here. I do think that the Hawks, they're going to go small. Trae Young is out on the court. They are going to chuck up a million shots. Chicago is going to have to do their best to keep up here. And I think they will. And I do think the over would be the only way I could play it. It was 222. It looks like it's starting to creep up here to 223 now. I don't think I'd lay more than a bucket. It's what, 3.5 now. I don't know that I'd be expecting. It feels like this could come down to final possession type of thing. But the only way I'd look at this one is points. Can you trust either team to get a stop?
No. That's the thing. You can't trust either team for anything.
Nope.
And if you take stuff that happened in the regular season and try to apply it to a one game, situation, it's really tough to make that
Yeah.
judgment. Okay, but the worst team in the NBA against the spread this season, ATS. It's an inside industry term for those of you that don't know. ATS record was the Atlanta Hawks, the worst record in basketball. So, if you're going to make a play and you go, all right, which team do I want to at least start with a pregame? Because I think you'll have opportunity in this one for both sides to take +5 and +5 on both sides at some point, because I think there'll be a lot of lead changes. But if you're going to just make a pregame wager after the game, if you lose holding the Hawks ticket, you go, I just bet on a team with the worst ATS record in basketball.
Yes.
That's me. That's this guy, if you do that.
Mhm.
Or you take the Bulls and you lay 3. I mean, you might as well lay, if you're really worried about the spread, Joe, -150 on a money line. I don't even know if that makes me feel good. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this thing.
I'm with you on the in-game opportunities there. I
Oh.
think I think you're good to go with that angle there. I mean, it's because again, I think it's a one bucket kind of game. I mean, these two teams are terrible, but I mentioned last night to you, you and Scotty on In Game Live, how I just could not be more impressed with the effort that the Bulls, who had nothing to play for against the Knicks, that team was trying. I don't know if they bring that kind of effort here at home against the Hawks. The Hawks don't want to be here. There's a lot more animosity and things going on with that Hawks team inside the locker room. So I could see if the Bulls can get out in front and pull away here a little bit. I don't see the same kind of effort by the Hawks that we saw against the Bulls against the Knicks. If they play with that intensity, they're going to win, and they'll probably win easily. But I'd much rather see it than get it first, right?
Yes, that's my approach a lot of times with these things, and like we're seeing it now with the Sixers and the Heat. Slow start. I mean, I don't know what the score is going to be at the end of this quarter, but the in-game number total wise is already down to 198.5. So we're on an under pace where they moved to 10 points already, and we still got 6. We're halfway through the first quarter. So sometimes you can do all this pregame handicap and go, yep, this is what's going to happen. This is going to happen. And then the first quarter starts, you're like, whoa. I don't think this game's going over if they play it overtime tonight. So it can swing fast in the NBA, but unlike last night in the Western Conference, I think you see two games with teams. Both games tonight could go through serious lulls of no points.
Yes.
There could be periods of time where there's only free throws being made. There's no field goals being made. And I don't think anybody's going to light up the side from 3 other than what you said in the Hawks and Bulls game. If the Hawks start chucking it and they go in, that game's going over because the Bulls will match the pace. So
that's correct.
I don't know, Joe. Did you look at any hockey tonight? I had it slated to just
took
mention.
all the dogs.
Took
all the dogs.
Dogs.
Okay. What are the Islanders playing for? What is Pittsburgh playing? What are these teams? What is Dallas playing for? What is? There is legit no reason for those teams here tonight, the favorites, to do what? Listen, if we're going to win with Arizona finally before they move to, what did you say, Canada? Where are they going? Utah. They're going to Utah.
City, Joe.
Yeah, whatever. Might as well be.
Not Canada.
But they got to. What is Edmonton playing for? I can't see any of these.
No idea.
Zero.
That one.
They got 0 to play for. Just feels like a dog night. Blues.
So Edmonton -170 approximately on the road at Arizona in the last game, at least for now, maybe ever, in the state of Arizona, although they're going to keep the door open to some 5-year window where they can have another team call them the Coyotes if he gets a new arena. This just in. If you didn't go before, why are you going to go in 5 years? I don't know what that even means, but I had a nice run in Arizona. I lived there from 99 until we moved here in 03, and I had season tickets. I went to the games. I played hockey at the practice rink. I mean, it was the best. And I'm kind of sad that they're leaving. People are looking at this as a betting opportunity. I think it's got to be an over. I feel more comfortable with the over than the side because guys are like, hey, we've been living it up. We got practice facilities in Scottsdale. This is a nice place to live. We can play golf year round. We're moving to Salt Lake City. It snowed there yesterday. This is a big change. I don't know how motivated they're going to be. And it's their last game ever there. And it's a lot of guys probably last game together. Edmonton's this is a move before the playoffs. So maybe you get more of an effort from Edmonton. I don't know. Trying to handicap motivation today and tomorrow in the NHL. Just throw everything up in the air and go, I don't know.
From what I understand, though, that game has to be over by 11:30 because they have like a mixed hockey league coming in at that YMCA arena. So they got to kind of hurry them by, and there's some sort of co-ed league coming in afterwards. So bye-bye, Arizona. Thank you so very much for playing at a YMCA. But what about your Penguins? Do you have enough faith that they wipe the bad taste out of their mouth here tonight?
No. Penguins are done.
No.
I wouldn't bet the Penguins with Zeno's money. Zeno was trying to bet me and your money the other night while we were on the air.
Yes.
I wouldn't bet the Penguins tonight with Zeno's money.
But what do the Islanders got to play for? The Islanders are sitting everybody, and they're already up 1-0.
It's at home game. Right, the home team. Give me the home team in that situation, right? When neither team wants to go, they're like, the road team goes and goes, what are we doing here? Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Just go out there. Yes. Don't get hurt. Skate around. Make sure to whistle, fewer whistles. Dump the puck. Keep the clock moving. Let's get home back to Pittsburgh for the exit interviews. The end of the season for teams is so awkward. When I worked as a sports producer, we had to go in and ask people, like, what did you say? How was the season? What do you think they're going to say? Unbelievable.
Yeah. By the way, 2-1 already with Tampa and Toronto. I know Toronto lost Matthews. I don't know. I just see it's 2-1, so I don't know if it was him yet that scored that goal. But it is still 6 minutes to go in the first period there. So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll let him know. Dave, you'll see him at the top of the hour. In-game live. Game Time Decisions returns.
There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We talked about the Ohtani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it. But the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Boy, if you passed him up as a Heisman Trophy winner and he lights the league on fire like C.J. Stroud over a Bryce Young, you might not make it as a head coach or in your regime here. I just don't think they can pass over Daniels at number 2.
He's sitting at 5.8 goals saved above average. He has been standing on top of his head for this team, but defense has to help him out a little bit. The Red Wings defense comes alive just a bit. I think that they're definitely going to punch their card.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early
The
line.
magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into this Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network as we are off and running. Just 4 games in the NHL. A couple of scores already here in that one. 2-1 Tampa Bay over Toronto. But Austin Matthews was not the guy that actually scored the goal for Toronto. So number 70 will have to wait. And if there is ever anybody that would have found a way to fade that prop tonight, it is Mr. Opposite Pick, Scotty Wetzel. There is some sort of black cloud or some system that is going to tell us he ain't getting number 70 here tonight. Scotty, what's going on?
What's going on, Joe? You know, he probably will. I've written him off for dead ever since he came up 1 goal short of our 17-1 little play that we had
right.
for 15 goals in February. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
1 short.
Oh.
Yeah. Couldn't get one more there, could you, Austin? Not just one stinking more. And we had like 3 games to get 2 in the end, and he came up short. So from that point on, he's been dead. Doesn't exist. So he'll probably get it.
Love it. I love it. There's still 2-1, though, Tampa there. None of those teams in the NHL tonight with a whole lot to play for. We do have an NBA game here right now, and it looks like a 20-15 Philadelphia lead early on. It has just been not great looking basketball. A lot of whistles here. I believe Adebayo got hit with 2 quick fouls. He's been on the bench here against Embiid here, but nothing. I guess maybe we should have seen this. There's going to be periods like this in this game where these guys just don't make shots, but I got to feel like the threes are coming at some point here.
Yeah, I don't know, Joe. I liked. I heard you talking with Dave. He had liked the under. I like the under as well. And you know, it really doesn't. The number they're giving you now really doesn't make sense as far as how the game is going, right? The original number was 208, which means, you know, if you just use it by quarter, that's 52 points a quarter, right? So basically, they always do it by 52 points a quarter in this case, and then whatever you're not getting in this first quarter. But they're still giving you basically 52 points a quarter. They got 17 points, 20-17, 37 points with a minute left. They're not getting to 52 clearly, and yet they're lowering it, you know, 10, 11 from the original number, but they still think you're going to get 52 every quarter. That's how this in-game line stuff works. I don't think they are. I think this is a 45 point a quarter score. And the fourth quarter could be even less than that. So I still like the under. And they're keeping it right around 198.5. These guys are clanging shots left and right. I mean, my goodness. Plus they got fouls. Yeah, all the fouls they didn't call in the Laker game last night, they're calling in this game, you know, so far tonight.
Yeah, and also a ton of turnovers for the 76ers here, which is what's given Miami an opportunity to get back in this game. Tyler Hero hits a 3. It's knotted up. Oh, I'm sorry. Jaime Jaquez hits a 3. It's now tied up at 20-20. And I not exactly. I would not have expected a half court game here because I don't see how that favors Miami here. I think if I'm Miami, I want to try to get out as best I can and leave Embiid in the dust. But 2020 right now, early in this one here, we do have a game coming up next. I did check, Scotty. Unfortunately, somebody has to win it between the Bulls and the Hawks. I thought maybe, just maybe, we could declare both losers and be done with it. But somebody's got to win it. How are you looking at that one coming up?
Yeah, it's like flipping a coin. Can we call sides? Not heads or tails, but can we actually, call the side? I'm going to start with Atlanta. All right, excuse me. I'm going to start with Chicago. They're at home. It's basically pick 'em. Home teams in these play-in series are now 15-7 after last night's Sacramento win. That's not over the top great, but 2-to-1 ratio, right? Atlanta, as David mentioned, I heard you talking to him, worst against the spread record in the NBA, 29-53. They've lost 6 in a row, albeit 5 against playoff teams, but one of those was a home loss against Charlotte. So they're playing awful basketball coming in. They're the worst against the spread team coming in. I mean, really, it's tough to make a case for the Hawks. They're getting Trae Young back, which we'll get to here in a second with my props, but that hasn't helped over the last 3 games that he's played. So, yeah, to me, you got to start with the Bulls.
Do you see this game? I can't imagine holding an under ticket tonight in that game and trying to sweat it out. Because everyone's hurt on Atlanta anyway, and with Trae Young, they're going to go small ball and they're going to fly up and down the court. So, were you thinking over in this one at 222.5, 223?
Yeah, definitely over. Both are pretty strong over teams. Bulls this year, believe it or not, 45-36-1 over. Atlanta, nearly identical, 46-35-1 over, including 12-3 their last 15 games. So it's only 222.5, depending on where you do your shopping. I'm a little surprised it is that low, but I think they're going to go up and down the court. Yeah, unlike this first game, the second game, you got two partners that aren't afraid of going up and down the court, and Atlanta especially. You're just not going to prevent them from trying to run and gun, especially with Young back in the lineup. So, yeah, I would take Chicago in the over, but the over is definitely the play between that and the under. And by the way, the season series went 2-1 over too. The season series between the two went 2-1 over. So,
yeah. I was impressed with the effort Chicago put in against the Knicks when it meant absolutely nothing to them. So. I do love the energy and the effort. If they bring that tonight, they should be okay, and I think we won't have a problem getting up and over there. Jimmy Butler got run into by Kelly Oubre, and he's on the ground, and the entire Miami Heat fan base has just caught its breath as as he was holding his right knee on the ground. They just cut the commercial, so we'll let you know what's going on there. But he's been known to be a bit of a drama also there on the court. So we'll see what happens there. How about a Major League Baseball? Did you have anything in the Boston and Guardians game or Rays and Angels?
Well, let me throw one prop at you for the Chicago game before we get off that, Joe. And I really think this is and I think this is the best play of the night pertaining to this game. Although I do like the over and I like Chicago, but Trae Young, 22.5 points, Joe. They're giving us a discount. Ooh. Now, the guy averages 26.5 in his postseason career. All but one of his 5 postseason series has he averaged at least 28 points a game. He had one series against Miami where he only averaged 15 for whatever reason. Now, since his return, he's scored 12, 19, and 14 points. So why are we playing the over, Scott? Because he played limited minutes in those games. One was a blowout. He played 21 minutes. Another one was only 27 minutes. And another one was only 31 minutes. So he didn't play his usual 38 to 42 minutes. I guess they wanted to ease him in, which makes a lot of sense. He's not playing only 22 minutes or 27 minutes tonight. He's going to get 35-plus minutes easily. So forget about those 12, 19, and 14 points. He's going to get his minutes, and if he gets his minutes, he's getting 23 points. Like I said, the guy averages more than that anyway. In the postseason, he steps up his game. He's not coming back to defer to anybody. He's not passing the ball. He'll get his assist, but I really would be surprised if he didn't get at least 23 points in a game that we both think is going to be a run-and-gun, high-scoring affair. So, but we're getting that discount because he's only scored those 12, 19, and 14. But again, that's 10 less minutes of what he normally plays. He's not sitting that much in a postseason game. No way.
I'm kind of shocked as you were saying that, Scott. I am at 22.5. I'm betting it. I am with you there. Because he's going to get volume. We know this about him. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So I love that prop. I think that's a great look there. Jimmy Butler did take his free throws, made one of them, but he's hobbling around here, end of the first. So it's I believe 22-20, somewhere in that ballpark, or 23. It was
23-22.
Just too annoying. Yeah, that's just absolutely annoying. So we'll see what happens in the second quarter here, but so far certainly trending way to the under than what we originally had. And in the Major League Baseball, did you have the Mets keep winning games? Aaron Judge apparently can get a hit, which is shocking. He can get a hit here. And we've got Rays, Angels, and Boston and the Guardians here. Were you on any of these?
And how about the Dodgers? They lost again today, Joe. So Washington shut out. They lost. They were minus 280 in that series. Minus 280, right? I mean, and it's hard not to make a case. All right, Dodgers at home, 3-game series against the worst team in the National League, and they lost 2 of 3, getting shut out, no less. I mean, I looked it up, because we follow this stuff. We have some fun. If you bet on the Dodgers, let's just say $100 player, you're 12-9, right? You won 12, you lost 9, but your unit, which is obviously the main thing, you're minus $818. Depending on where you do your shopping, all lines are a little different, but you're basically minus $800 on the Dodgers. I didn't think they'd lose 9 games all month, let alone by April 17th. I mean, but they're pitching, Joe. Now, they only gave up 2 runs. I don't know how they can be shut. 3 of their top 4 guys are batting 300, and the 4th guy's hitting like 280, and yet they can't. Yeah. They don't score that many runs. I mean, it's the craziest thing.
They are. I believe they have the best 1, 2, 3 lineup in all of Major League Baseball. Yeah. I mean, they're those 3 guys. They're hitting 326. They got a 412 on base percent. I mean, they're just the numbers are off the chart. But what else is there? I mean, and that's the glaring. Forget about pitching. Like, what else is going on there? That's not a great start here for the Dodgers. I do think they'll be fine because the 3 guys at the top will carry them at some particular point, but not a good look for them in any way, shape, or form here. And what's the biggest surprise to you so far in Major League Baseball? Can't be the Dodgers.
Yeah, well, them not doing well. I mean, Betts is hitting 369, by the way. Ohtani batting second is hitting 360. Freeman, who's a great hitter, 276, and Will Smith 348. And yet, they can't win. It's just it is amazing. It's amazing to me. So that they are the big surprise for me. Well, they sent a guy out there today. Yeah, he's making his Major League debut today. This is not like July, August, where it's a dog days of summer. Okay, we got to give guys. We're 3 weeks into the season, and they're starting guys that haven't pitched before in baseball. So
no, and not just them, everywhere. I mean, so the Red Sox lost Whitlock. We got, the IL here, and it does look like Verlander at least is back in the uniform. So maybe they, some teams look like they're going to get a little bit some relief, but I mean, how many more times? Is this every year? I don't ever remember, Scott, whether or not the first month of the season it was like, IL. This one's IL. Does it seem like a lot to you here so far this year?
Yeah, I was going to say especially the first month, right? I mean, okay, in the dog days of summer, some of these guys break down, whatever you hear about that, but not the first month, not the first couple of weeks. I mean, they had normal spring training, right? I mean, they're all on pitch counts. Nobody's going more than 5-6 innings tops. So it's the craziest thing. So I'm gonna hop on Dave with Arizona tonight. Plus 150. The Coyotes are actually 21-19 at home this year. They were pretty good last year. They're actually a real good home team. Can't buy a win on the road, but last game for Arizona, give me the Coyotes against Edmonton.
As long as they're done before that intramural league has to take the ice at that YMCA, we're good to go. Scotty, good luck here tonight. We'll close it out. Game Time Decisions next.
There's going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We talked about the Ohtani story. This interpreter, Ipe, clearly was a problem gambler. I mean, he would be identified as that and beyond. Now, there are a lot of others that are out there.
The timing didn't seem great. It seemed slightly tone deaf in terms of, maybe now isn't the time to say it, but the sentiment itself, you have to agree with. There's only so much a sports betting company can do, right?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Boy, if you passed him up as a Heisman Trophy winner and he lights the league on fire like C.J. Stroud over a Bryce Young, you might not make it as a head coach or in your regime here. I just don't think they can pass over Daniels at number 2.
He's sitting at 5.8 goals saved above average. He has been standing on top of his head for this team, but defense has to help him out a little bit. The Red Wings defense comes alive just a bit. I think that they're definitely going to punch their card.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
North Carolina come back, take the lead, and then somehow Alabama punches back. A true classic. Like, the word classic gets tossed around loosely a lot, but that really was a true classic.
Great point earlier about Arizona. They had such an advantage under the basket, yet they're having guys just chuck threes. Their whole game plan sucked from the get-go. Like, the fact that they lost that game, I put a lot of it on coaching.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The Early Line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game Time Decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in as we close out this edition of Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network. We're getting some points finally in this Miami Heat and Sixers game. Miami up 28-26 right now as Jimmy Butler appears to be on the court. So good to go there. A little bit of a scare as he got run into by Kelly Oubre, and he was holding his knee at the end of the first quarter, but he started the second quarter on the court, and he remains the leading scorer with both teams with 10 points, 1 rebound, and 2 assists. So 28-26, 8 minutes to go there. Scotty Wetzel and Dave Sherapan, they are coming up next for you with a little in-game live prime time. They will keep you posted on everything in this game, as well as the NHL, in which we have 4 games underway here tonight, including a big dog that everyone seems to want to bet, and that dog is Arizona at home. Final game in the state in that YMCA arena, as they will be moving on to Salt Lake City here in the not too near distant future. 6.5 is the goal set. Got to believe that's going to be up and over, but at plus 146, not a bad way to look there. You also have Tampa still up 2-1 on Toronto. Austin Matthews is the story in this game for Toronto, going for goal number 70. And the Pittsburgh Penguins just tied up the New York Islanders 1 apiece as they head to the second period. So plenty of action going on here, including a couple of baseball games, 1-1 Angels and Tampa. And I do believe it is 1-0 Boston over the Guardians. So the in-game live crew, Scotty Wetzel, Dave Sherapan, will take over next. Game Time Decisions will be back again tomorrow with another edition. Until then, best of luck with all your plays tonight. We'll talk to you again soon.